Good morning, Wake Divinity.
Good morning.
Welcome to a new semester. I know it's like, already? And when you have these wonderful breaks with family and friends, and it seems that your schedule is opened up just a little bit, you're like, well, why can't we just have it like this all the time? So, one thing that we get to do here at Wake Divinity is to create our community. So, the spirit that you had over the break, bring that spirit with you, and let's create those moments. Not to be rushed. Endure the infinite peace of being with one another. And endure is not something of stress, but it is enabling us to really sit and understand and relish with one another. As we stated last week, Joshua, we're going to luxuriate in the pleasures of the text. Let us enjoy the pleasures of the presence of each other this day and every day. So let's not rush anything. And let's welcome everything. We must agree when we look into ourselves and at human history. And we may wonder, why is it so seldom that philosophers and theologians speak about it, its roots, and its justifications? They don't ask what kind of force it is that creates and maintains hope, even if everything seems to contradict it. Instead, they devalue hope by calling it wishful thinking or utopian fantasy. But nobody can live without hope, even if it were only for the smallest things which give some satisfaction even under the worst of conditions. Without hope, the tension of our life toward the future would vanish, and with it, life itself. We would end in despair, a word that originally meant without hope or in deadly indifference. Therefore, I want to ask a question today. Do we have a right to hope? Is there justified hope for each of us, for nations and movements, for humankind, and perhaps for all life, for the whole universe? Do we have a right to hope? These words are taken from the late Paul Tillich, The Right to Hope. Tillich reminds us that this season of Epiphany feels different. God is with us. Yet the circumstances of life and the challenges we face raise a troubling question, particularly for the community of the faithful. War, famine, genocide, environmental collapse, poverty, disease, corruption, exploitation, inequality, injustice, and fear stalk our daily existence. For some, these are not abstract issues or mere concepts, but intimate realities. And yet, Epiphany, marked by a closeness, an intimacy, a depth of character that continues to define faithful life. I'm reminded of a statement by the renowned ethicist Kwame Anthony Appiah, who writes of the Cambridge Epiphany philosophers. It was the Epiphany philosophers who introduced me to the possibility of philosophy, not just as an academic subject, but as a way of life. Philosophy for them was mixed up with friendship and brisk walks in the Norfolk countryside, and drinking cheap and even occasionally expensive wine. It required openness to physics, linguistics, theology, parapsychology, and more. Nothing human or otherwise was alien to them. Epiphany. God is with us. This affirmation may prompt a response that our faith is strange. Strange at its emergence in the life of that first century Palestinian Jew, and no less strange in a quixotic graduate theological community living in the midst of 21st century American empire. The theme of this homily is on hope. It is dedicated to all those magnificent, often unnamed teachers of democracy, courage, and human compassion, who have, as the great Vincent Harding reminds us, seen things differently and acted accordingly. In other words, it is for those of us who have taken up this mission to be and become agents of justice, reconciliation, and compassion. This is our task. Harding provides us with the message. But it is in precisely these moments of great spiritual and societal hunger, like our own, that we most need to open our minds, open our hearts, and open our memories to those who actually dreamed new possibilities for our nation, for our world, and even for our own lives. It is now that we may be able to convey a stunning idea that dreams, imagination, vision, and hope are actually very powerful mechanisms in the creation of new realities, especially when the dreams go beyond mere speeches, mere sermons, mere songs, and become embodied and take on the flesh in real hard places. Hope, particularly during this season of Epiphany, confronts a stark question that finds its exemplary articulation in the mid-19th century. In 1850, following the passage of the Fugitive Slave Act, Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth addressed an audience of abolitionists at Boston's Faneuil Hall. In his critique of the United States, Douglass forcefully argued that American democracy suffers from a profound inability to address African Americans justly. He questioned not only the political order of the nation, but the very possibility that the United States could ever repent or atone for its sins. Douglass concluded that the only viable path for African Americans was armed revolution, aimed at establishing a new political order. As the crowd sat in a stunned silence, Sojourner Truth asked a simple yet profound question. Frederick, is God dead? Frederick, is God dead? I begin with this scene, and we return to it because it continues to reverberate in our moment. Is God dead? It challenges us to rethink God's presence in the world. While the beauty of the everyday, the dearest, freshest, deep down things, calls us to new experiences of living, we're constantly confronted with the very reality of an ugliness that forces us to confront the question, is God dead? Truth questions presses us to reflect on the very conditions of our own lives. and our own communities. It reminds us that the question of belief is not finished, but is a journey. To engage with truth's question is to probe the very intimacies of hope, a hope that is not a right, but a hope that is nothing less than life itself. Such is the ground of our belief. Now, often we're reminded that belief is ambiguous. Belief is most intimately personal. Belief is most intimately about the individual, about the I. But yet, to confront belief in that singular, absolute manner reminds us that the I cannot exist outside of the community. Belief is both personal and communal. One does not come to belief in isolation. Yet the decision, the ultimate decision, is intensely individual. Oftentimes, when we confront belief through the I, we may think we're only talking about ourselves, Corey Walker. But yet, we're speaking about a broader community that enables us to develop a collective sense of belief that then we host within ourselves. The I is both individual and is communal, as the African philosopher John Mbiti reminds us. I am because we are, and we are because I am. It is in this sense that we understand that our belief is not static, it shifts and evolves. While we may think of it as something settled, to which we then begin to investigate, to understand its contours, its fixed boundaries, we're reminded that belief continues to move and shape as we journey through life and as we engage and encounter new communities. Therefore, any meditation on hope connected to our belief reminds us that we must explore those moving conditions of belief and cultivating a hope appropriate to the very practice of faith, and that is life itself. In the second chapter of Paul's letter to the Romans, Paul writes, "You then who teach others, do you not teach yourself? You who preach against stealing, do you steal? You who say that people should not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who abhor idols, do you rob temples? You who brag about the law, do you dishonor God by breaking the law?" Paul is addressing a community that exhibits an audacious confidence in its belief, an arrogance that assumes it knows all there is to know about God and the practices of the life of faith. They are convinced they have it all and they have all the answers. But Paul challenges their smug self-confidence with a pointed question phrased in the vernacular. Do you practice what you preach? This critique highlights a central theme of hope for us today. Hope is not grounded in absolute certainty, but thrives in profound humility. Hope is not about having all of the answers. It is not about having all of the directions for the journey that we must take. Rather, it is recognizing that in and through our limitations, we can learn with others and we can remain open to the new, even in the face of despair. Hope, rooted in humility, allows the community of faith to speak in a new voice. This voice does not offer judgment or hostility, but one of a generous love and a just faith. Such hope resists an arrogance, an epistemic arrogance, as well as a cultural arrogance that can be consolidated in theology with a capital T and in the practice of faith and a vision of Christian supremacy. Paul's text also challenges us to cultivate a faith and a hope, rather, that is hospitable. Paul reminds us that belief welcomes not those who are like us, but welcomes the stranger, whether that stranger is in the world or within ourselves. Hope does not treat others as means to an end. It sees each individual as an end in and of themselves. It does not seek to build an exclusive community, but welcomes neighbors in all of their beautiful complexity and their beautiful contradictions. It remains open to renewal and transformation, continually reimagining our relationship with one another and with the divine. It compels us to ask, what does our hope say to those who are suffering, those with their backs up against the wall? It challenges us with a deep question. How is it possible to live a right life in such a wrong world? This question calls on us to not offer trite answers or quick cliches, but we need to respond with the fierce urgency of an openness and a fierce urgency grounded in hope. Finally, a hope that is humble and hospitable grounds and sustains a general force of creative possibility. Hope is not merely holding on to a set of doctrines, truths, beliefs, or orientations that enable us to be safe and secure in the world. It is about the infinite potential within our lives and within each person, and yes, within existence itself. It reminds us that the future is not closed off. It is not predetermined. It is not set. Instead, the future casts a character of l'avenir to come. It grounds us in the possibility that there can be a new and better world. There can be a new and better community. There can be a new and better Wake Forest University School of Divinity, shaped intimately by new expressions of humility, deep understandings of hospitality, and infinite ringings of hope in our lives. Thus, hope positions us to faithfully and authentically respond to the depth of our moment. Sojourner's Truth question to Frederick Douglass, is God dead? Resonates deeply with us, even in this season of Epiphany. Yes, God is with us, and we are challenged to examine the very foundations of our faith, both individually and as a community. Let us cleave to hope, a hope grounded in humility, open to hospitality, and that sustains radical visions of creative possibility now and into the long future. As we continue our shared journey together, may we embrace and embody the transformative power and potential of hope that welcomes us into new lives, not with absolute answers, but new lives that exist within the infinite presence of that which speaks to both the beauty and the barrenness of our existence and ourselves. welcome to a season of hope. Welcome to a season of life. Amen.